radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Well, it was a little awkward. No one was applauding, so she had to tell them to applaud.
An ovation must be about inclusion. That's what Sam's about. Sam Altman, all right, applause line.
No. This was just... first of all, Nancy Pelosi goes to a GLAAD event. This is a gimme. This is like if I go speak at CPAC, everybody's going to applaud for me. And she's going to GLAAD. She can't even get applause there unprompted. Did they have a person with an applause placard? She should bring her staff to hold up the big, sign poster board. Applaud now, please, instead of having to say, okay, that's an applause line. All right. Sam, could you help here? Oh, no. This was Laura Ingraham here. We have a lot to get to. 855-40-LAURA, Raymond Arroyo as well. We have a loaded-up show. Jay Sekulow is going to join us. Anthony Kennedy has provided a temporary reprieve against President Trump's order blocking most refugees from entering the country. Fantastic. So now we get all these people coming back into the country because AMK, Anthony M. Kennedy, says so. Tyranny of the judiciary all over again. The man has got to retire. So we'll get into that with Sekulow. We have a really interesting woman who's running for Senate in Michigan. We thought for a while it was going to be Kid Rock, right? And he's not going to. He's decided
he's not doing it.
No, I guess not. Is he staying on tour?
Did you hear he gave a whole political speech after a concert last week? It was a little profane, but it was
his
fire
lyrics.
breathing.
I'm not a big Kid Rock fan. I know he does stuff in the military. That's great. I love that. But it's just gross lyrics. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not going to let down my guard on the gross lyrics because Kid Rock, likes Trump. It's gross. I mean, he's got to clean up his act. He's too old for that. And by the way, he also has to cut that hair, that stringy long hair with the pork pie hat. That is that is not a look you want replicated.
No, that and the F-bombs at every turn.
No, that's gross. No, so Debbie stabbed me in the face. Stabino is in the crosshairs. Oh, wait, we can't say that any longer. So we'll talk about that. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, is going to stop by. It looks like they're going to put the total cost of this Harvey at about $150 billion. As Jacksonville, you got all the waiters. I have a question about the waiters that all the anchors and the reporters are wearing. Have they ordered this from the same boutique? They seem like they're very fancy waiters. The waiters I remember as a kid were those green ones that you use when you go fishing in the creek or something. Just that these are very precious waiters the boys are wearing out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very precious. And the black T-shirts were out in full force yesterday. They got the tidy black T-shirts. Yeah, that's all.
No tidy whities.
No,
please.
I don't want to think about that. And poor old Charleston. That is a nightmare there. They're in an odd area along the eastern seaboard, and they have gotten smacked some, but they were not expecting it to be quite as bad. Victor Davis Hansen's going to join us. We have a lot of stuff going on here. Hillary Clinton. Speaking of women who beg for applause, Hillary Clinton is out there promoting her book, which is officially out today, called What Happened? Here, the subtitle should be, I Lost. I mean, what happened? What happened? You lost. That's what happened. What a stupid name for a book.
Democrats are not happy about this whole book tour.
No. This is just dragging them down. It's totally dragging them down. But she has the book, What Happened? I always think of that show, What's Happening, right? Was that in the 80s or
yes.
80s?
Yep, the mid-80s. What's Happening?
That was a very down-home show, as I recall.
I loved that show. I used to watch that. It came on right before Three's Company.
Yeah.
What's Happening?
What's Happening? So
there was Rerun. Remember Rerun? He had suspenders and a kind of little hat. And
Rerun and all that. Yeah. So what happened is hitting the bookshelves. How much did she get for that? She get $7 million, $8 million for this thing, something like that. Didn't the Obamas get like $80 million for
$40 million for their book?
That is a travesty. So anyway, so she comes out with her book. She did her big thing on CBS Sunday Morning. She still refuses to take responsibility for the loss. She's still blaming the Russians. She's still blaming, collusion, or she's still blaming Comey. I mean, it's everyone but Hillary Clinton. So I was thinking about that. So I did some research this morning before I was on Fox and Friends. And you know how her mentor, her role model is Eleanor Roosevelt? You know, that stunner?
Yes.
Eleanor.
Applause line.
Eleanor. Applause line, please. Applause line. Yeah.
All right. Applause line.
No. Oh, that laugh could peel paint.
Nervous laughter.
By the way, Eleanor Roosevelt, I think we need to examine whether there's the possibility of bringing back the braid trend, other than Sheila Jackson Lee with the side braids. You know how she did those? Did Eleanor Roosevelt have hair down to her buttocks? She had long hair, right? And she liked to.
There were a lot of braids.
Yeah, lots. It was a Medusa-like braid situation. But she said, in the long run, we shape our lives, and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die, and the choices we make are ultimately our own responsibility. Maybe she needs to go back and read the Roosevelt that I read this morning. And this is another great line. Speaking of Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. If you could kick the person responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month. I love that. That's Hillary. Hillary falling right into the sedan on the 9/11 of last year. It's all her fault. This is no one's fault except her own. And by the way,
I don't need anybody to defend my record.
Yeah.
I think my record speaks for itself.
Yeah, you're sure right. It does. And so she goes on and on and on about how Trump behaved. And the second debate where they brought the women. Remember, they brought Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey. It was the greatest hits. Juanita Broderick. They even brought that victim of the rapist that Hillary helped free, and Hillary was laughing. Remember when she was in the 70s when she was working as a young attorney? So Bannon, I'm sure it was Bannon, who organized the parade of Clinton victims, and it was so dramatic when they walked in, and Bill Clinton looked like he just swallowed a tadpole. I mean, he looked sick to his stomach. The face on Bill Clinton when he looked over to see these women. And so this is what she said about Trump and personal respect. And then she talked about how he behaved on stage. And I think this was referring to the second debate. Do we have it, James? Don't have it. Okay. She said, I thought Trump behaved in a deplorable manner. We saw on Access Hollywood tape, large number of people didn't care. We now have it? Oh, great. Let's hear it.
Why do you think that word deplorable had been circulating in your mind?
Well, I thought Trump was behaving in a deplorable manner. I thought a lot of his appeals to voters were deplorable. I thought his behavior, as we saw on the Access Hollywood tape, was deplorable. And there were a large number of people who didn't care.
But you offended some people who didn't personally feel deplorable at all.
I don't buy that. I'm sorry I gave him a political gift of any kind.
It was a gift.
But I don't think that was determinative.
That's probably the greatest accomplishment that she has ever had in politics.
Remember at the second debate? At the second debate, Donald Trump cleaned her clock. And why did he clean her clock? Because he dared to do what no one had done before. He dared to look right into the eyes of the Clintons and call them out for their treatment of women and the voters.
If you look at Bill Clinton, his was what he's done to women. There's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women. I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself, if you want to know the truth.
I love that. You know why I'm reliving this is because I'm doing the audiobook. And so I'm reading through Billionaire
the
at the
audiobook
Barricades.
Of what, I might ask?
Billionaire at the Barricades, out on October 10th. You can pre-order now on our website, Facebook. It's really fun to go back and stuff that you forget that happened. Drew and I were there. Were you at the debate, Raymond? I can't remember if you were at the second debate.
I wasn't at that debate. Okay. No, I had I was eating popcorn watching at home.
We were screaming in the Fox trailer watching this. I was with Monica Crowley. We were absolutely high-fiving each other because Trump just laid waste to Hillary, laid waste to her. And then he went on to the pro-life issue and said, it's up to Hillary Clinton. She'd rip that baby out of the womb in the 9th month. It is like, I don't care what you call that, but that is not right. That is not right, and I'm never going to say it's right. Nothing you can say will convince me that that's right. Oh, that was brutal. It's brutal. But she's talking about Trump's behavior because of his unfortunate and lewd comments, which I despised and I condemned. But saying something and doing what these two did, to defraud the country, to abuse women, to cover up the abuse of women, and then to laugh at a woman who was raped and whose rapist she got off. That's disgusting. Oh, and I loved how he did that. So I went back and I thought about how she can call Trump deplorable.
Did you see the New York Times review of this book?
No.
Today, I read it today. I read it this morning. It says, it is a post-mortem in which she is both coroner and corpse. It is a feminist manifesto. It is a score-settling jubilee. But it's basically a positive review. But here's the big question. Do any Americans look at this and say, this analysis is correct? It was James Comey and Donald Trump's flim-flam that won him the election.
She was positive.
And not her failings.
Yeah. No, it was the fact that the bipartisan establishment, of which she and her husband were part, have been scamming the American taxpayer for decades. She was a chief cheerleader of globalism. She ran the State Department like she would run, and her husband ran the Clinton Foundation as a revolving door where influence was peddled and favors were granted. People were sick of it. They were tired of these trade deals. Again, she championed the TPP, and then during the campaign, suddenly she wasn't talking about it. Everybody knew that if she was elected, she would have pushed through that Trans-Pacific Partnership and other deals like it. Everybody knew that Hillary Clinton would continue the globalist policies of Barack Obama and preside over America's further decline. Everybody knew it. And she gave the sub rosa behind the curtain speeches to Goldman Sachs, where she talked about the wonders of open markets and open borders. What does that mean for the American middle class? Low wages and few opportunities. So everyone knew, everyone was on to her. And she played her identity politics scam, but most people saw through that too. And so she wins California. She wins a lot of the New England states, of course, and she wins, the typical states that Democrats win, like Maryland and Washington State and Oregon. But for the middle of the country, especially that's been left behind and looked down upon as a basket of deplorables, they said, no thanks. We're not buying what you're selling. That's how she lost. 855-40-LAURA. Remember, Billionaire at the Barricades. You're going to love the book. You're going to love the tour. It kicks off on October 10th. I'll be on the Meet the Press on October 8th. Then the Today Show on October 9th. The book comes out October 10th. And I'll be on Hannity that night. We have a lot to look forward to. We are praying for the people of Florida and South Carolina. 1.3 million people without power in Georgia, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Donald Trump is going to travel to this week, has been absolutely devastated. There's a lot of damage. The hurricane could have been a lot worse, but it still was worse. It still was bad where it actually hit. Take a break. Get to all your calls. 855-40-LAURA. Hillary's blame game. Do you blame her? Don't go. You sent a clear message to the media and the political elites last fall. You wanted new leadership that focused on the middle class, not the political class, on your lives, not theirs. Well, they didn't get the message. They've been working hard since Election Day to block the voice of the people and help Democrats regain control of Congress. My friends, that cannot happen. You voted to drain the swamp, to take money and power away from Washington, D.C., return it to the hardworking people of this country. Well, we better do that. To moms and dads struggling to make ends meet, young workers trying to save for their future. My friends, small business owners looking to grow and hire employees, we all have to go to the website taxcutsnow.com. Send a letter to your member of Congress to support tax cuts. That's taxcutsnow.com. There's no exceptions, no wiggle room. Get these tax cuts through. Put the pressure on Congress. Go to taxcutsnow.com. That's taxcutsnow.com. The best way to avoid a Nancy Pelosi-led Congress in 2019, go to taxcutsnow.com. People lying. How do you lie down on election night? You stand up and you take it. I mean, what would have happened when the Cabbage Patch president launches another missile? Is she going to lie down then? See, I think she's saying this stuff to make herself more empathetic, but I just think it makes her look fairly weak. Yeah, you lost. Suck it up, Buttercup. And who just prepares one type of speech? That's just not smart. You got to be prepared, ever vigilant. Hillary Clinton. They're so supremely confident of their own intellect. So supremely confident. Never in doubt. Usually wrong. Hillary Clinton. This is just... By the way, we got all these billionaires who are mobilizing the immigrant vote for 2018, including Tom Steyer putting another $1 million into the immigrant advocates group in Virginia against Ed Gillespie. Interesting development. Homeschool security systems, old school, I should say, they don't really merit the trust of a lot of law enforcement because they can be easily, turned off. They can be, they can be turned off, or they can actually be, I think in the end they're not all that effective because criminals know how to get around them. And so you need Blink home security. Police are going with Blink to protect their homes and their families. Now, Blinks are discreet. They're super affordable video cams you install yourself in minutes. They're wire-free and run on 2 batteries that last for 2 years. Blinks go inside and outside, and they're motion-activated. They're always on duty, and the instant Blink detects something, sends a video alert to my smartphone, and basically you can help stop crime before it happens. Blink's live feed option is also cool, too. It lets you monitor your home from your smartphone. Check out this deal. I've got for you 3 Blink cams for what the other guys charge for just 1. Just go to blinkprotect.com/Laura. Plus, order now, and you get an extra 10% off. That's blinkprotect.com/Laura. blinkprotect.com/Laura. So just so we're clear here, as was reported earlier, it's a little confusing in some of the reports, and AMK did not give Trump a kick in the pants. In fact, he temporarily preserved the Trump refugee ban. So that's some welcome good news coming from the Supreme Court, but this is just temporary. And he's going to be asking, he is asking for a new briefing and briefing on the issue. And the Ninth Circuit is such a disaster. And a lot of these district court judges are Obama appointees or Trump appointees. So we'll see where this goes. But the president has it well within his constitutional authority under Article 1 to do this. I mean, he can control who comes in and out of the country. If he wants to have a religious test, he could. And that's not what this is. We have a lot to get to here on the Laura Ingraham Show, and a lot of good news on the tax reform front. At least they're meeting. Today, Mitch McConnell, 2 other members of the Budget Committee, are at the White House, and they're working with Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, Gary Cohn, in an attempt to put together a budget compromise in order to clear the way for tax reform. If they get this budget done, then guess what? They can actually put aside the concern about the Democrats filibustering on the tax reform, and this could be a win-win, but they got to get through the budget. And this is good news. I think Trump's working with the Democrats had all the right effects. Joining us now, Jay Sekulow, attorney to the president, chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, on all these issues that we're seeing popping up, and fascinating stuff. Jay, great to talk to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How about you, Laura?
I'm great. Explain the AMK move in layman's terms for our listeners.
Well, I mean, what you had was a situation where the Ninth Circuit, and you said it correctly, the Ninth Circuit, whenever I have a case on the Ninth Circuit, and if by chance, which is rare, we win, I've said we're doomed. Because, ultimately, it's the highest overturn, you know this better than anybody, it's the highest overturn rate in the country. So upwards of, 82%, I think, is what it was in the last year that they calculated. So you've had this, what I call picking apart by the district court judges in Hawaii and California, trying to pick apart the the executive order that the president issued that has been challenged, and the picking apart continued in the Ninth Circuit, where they did not like basically where the lines were drawn by the government, which is the president's authority, as you just said, under Article 1. So the California court redraws the lines, and Justice Kennedy says you don't get to do that, at least not right now, and puts a temporary order in place, ordered additional briefing, which I think is due next Tuesday, and the case ultimately is being argued October 10th. So the merits of the case will be reached. And it's the merits that are critical here. There really is no question that the president has the constitutional, in this case actually statutory authority, because there's some statutory language that has vested this with the president, but the Constitution does, so you don't need a statute. So, and really, what's happening right now is the lawyers with the ACLU and these other groups are doing anything they can to try to pick apart a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you drew the line at uncles, but should have been drawn at second cousins. And I think what Justice Kennedy is relaying in this order is, and it's very hard, you know this as well, it's very hard to read into an interim order, but it is a good sign. You can't ignore the fact that this is a good sign. So I'm optimistic. I think we can carry the day 9-0 on this.
All right, well, we should. If the justices are actually doing their job as to be impartial arbiters and calling balls and strikes on this and not making law, then they'll do the right thing. Jay, an interesting story popped up yesterday, and Bannon was asked about this in his interview. I don't know if we have it or not, but he was asked about whether there was some of the White House lawyers or the Trump lawyers, maybe in the investigation, asked for Jared Kushner, or suggested that Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, should move on. And John Dowd, who you know, who's now heading up the legal team.
My co-counsel, yeah.
Yeah, your co-counsel.
My co-counsel, yeah,
he said, well, he's not aware. He never suggested that, and he's not aware of anyone who did. What's up with that report?
Yeah, I think it's not correct, because I will tell you, I was one of the lawyers. I did not. Mark Kasowitz has issued a statement saying he did not.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, we want to reckon, is there a phantom lawyer we don't know? So I think the report was look, I mean, right now the media is so desperate for something on Russia, some story on Russia, that they're coming up with things like, did some lawyer ask the president or suggest to the president that Jared Kushner be not on the case, or not in the White House any longer? And here's what the answer was. Every lawyer they spoke to said no. We never had that conversation with the president, but the story still runs. So, I mean, I think, look, there's a sense of the media wanting more of a story than the story warrants, and that's just fact. And John and I are co-counsel in the case, and he's a great colleague, and he said it exactly correct.
And what about there are comments that were made, I don't know, it was John Dowd or Ty Cobb, or the other lawyer was like emailing some guy and fighting with him online in the middle of the night about some issue with
the situation with Ty was, the one story was a report that the guy, and this guy committed this, in my view, the person that did this committed a federal offense, was using a web address, an email address, indicating it was a White House staffer. So in that one, Ty was just doing what a special counsel inside the White House does. With regard to the reporters, look, I think the frustration level on the lawyer standpoint can get pretty intense, because you're constantly, and this is part of it.
It's part of the representation, though, isn't it, Jay?
Of course it does. Sure. Look, I mean, I have to do it. I do it every day.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to be able to put this in perspective. But the stories come at a very fast rate, and that the story with Ty actually was not a reporter that was doing this. This was somebody that was just venting on him. And I don't know if it was somebody who knew or not. I haven't had time. Obviously I talked to Ty, but we have other things to talk about. So I think what's happening in all of the media swirl on this is there is no media swirl on this, so they're trying to create one. So the lawyer sends an email, that's harsh to somebody, or somebody heard that maybe in May or June somebody said Jared Kushner shouldn't be there, and all of a sudden it's a story in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, my larger point on this, and there's a reason you don't see your name connected with any of these stories, but you've been through this fire so many times, that as a lawyer for the president, you don't want to be emailing with people. I mean, you just don't want to be emailing with people pretty much on anything, except maybe to you, and even then, I mean, given what we know about email, and so you have Ty Cobb out there asking this this reporter if she was on drugs. She delved into and motivations about taking a job in the White House, and then he responds. I mean, to me that just seems. And I know you're not going to criticize your colleague, but gosh, that seems odd.
I'll tell you. Let me tell you about this about Ty Cobb. He is a brilliant lawyer and one of the best in Washington, one of the best in the country. And so I'm not going to judge somebody by an email situation. I'm just not going to do that. I will say this, that the issues are not, when they make the lawyers the issue, that tells you something. That's a signal. If they're going to make the lawyers the issue rather than the issue, that tells me that actually, in one sense, we're doing our job in the sense that there's nothing else to talk about. So that's what's fueling this. But again,
you didn't hear anyone inside in the legal team in any way suggest that Kushner should go.
No, this report said that this idea went to the president, is what the Wall Street Journal said. Went to the president, and the president vetoed it or something, and I had no knowledge of that at all.
Okay, well, it's just, again, you're right. They're not talking about the actual underlying allegations. Right. Bannon referenced the Russia collusion, accusation in the 60 Minutes interview.
There's nothing to the Russia investigation. It's a waste of time.
What do you believe? You know what the national security institutions believe.
Look, I was there. It's a total and complete farce. Russian collusion is a farce.
Okay, I didn't say collusion. Did the Russians try to influence the election? That's what the investigation is about.
We'll have to wait till the investigation is finished.
What are your thoughts on his response?
I think that, first of all, I think the whole Russia investigation first of all, there's not a crime of collusion. I mean, it became a word. It sounds really good, collusion. And then when you go find me the statute on collusion. I mean, it doesn't exist, as your former boss would say, right? Show me that statute. So it doesn't exist. So I think the Russia investigation on whether the Russians meddled in the election campaign, that is not what I'm engaged with. I mean, obviously, in the scope of my representation of the president, I deal with the issues that are related to, if any, to the president. On this whole Russia collusion thing, I think the Russians have a long history of trying to, that's what the reports say, of trying to influence elections in all parts of the world. So while it's one, but to draw that nexus and say the Russians, were they trying to do it for President Trump, or were they trying to do it for Hillary Clinton? I mean, the DNC was meeting with the Ukrainians. So, I mean, this whole idea that there's been if the entire collusion case is a meeting in June of last year at Trump Tower, the one that involving Donald Trump Jr., if that's the case closed. Well, that's what it should be, case closed, in my view, by the way.
I think just going back to the Kushner thing, I think what the media are wanting to do is they're wanting to show the president as being irrational, or I'd say, engaged in favoritism toward Kushner over what's best for the country. That's what I think they're doing there. So when someone goes to him, there's a White House counsel, whoever the heck it was, if it was anyone, and the president says, "No way." Well, it's like, well, wait, there's this meeting, and you're talking to him about the investigation, and there's no privilege, so it's all discoverable. When you have White House staffers talking about the investigation with anyone in the White House, that's discoverable by Mueller. Mueller is he's put you guys on notice, right? He's bringing in 6 top or former advisors to President Trump who are witnesses to conversations about the investigation.
Yeah, but and you know this, Laura, there was a lot of discussion about that. That's very standard in an investigation that you would look at,
They're fishing, though. They're fishing, right? They're fishing.
Of course. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not going to comment on our conversations and our relationship with the special counsel. That's something we'll respect that the way we communicate. But I will tell you this. I am absolutely convinced at the end of the day there will be found no violation of the law of any type involving the President of the United States. I'm very confident.
Well, I think it's hard to get people to come to work for you maybe when they feel like they're going to have to get counsel. I mean, now Don McGahn's being called in, the White House counsel, his deputy. I mean, Hope Hicks, Spicer, Priebus. I mean, it's
no one's panicking over there. I mean, this is this idea that so people, they made it a big thing. Staff members are hiring lawyers. Okay.
Yeah.
But Can you name an administration that did not have an investigation going on?
No, I think it's a scandal that they're allowed to criminalize politics. I think it is.
Well, that's what it is.
It is hurting public service. Individuals who have a lot to offer are afraid to go in because they have a target on their back immediately, and not if you're a Democrat, but if you're a Republican, you do. And I think it's really a sad state of affairs.
If you're a Democrat, you end up being like Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. And do they recuse themselves from anything? No. They have conversations with the witness's husband, the target's husband, 2 days before the witness interview, and she recuses herself from nothing.
What do you think of Bannon's comment that firing Mueller was one of the biggest political mistakes in modern history?
I can't comment on that. I will tell you this. I think the evidence has shown that James Comey abused his office on multiple counts. I was critical of James Comey, by the way, when he engaged in the election last year for Clinton, against Clinton. I thought all of that was wrong, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, wherever you voted. I thought what James Comey did was outrageous. I think taking notes from a conversation he had with the President of the United States and leaking them to the press is criminal, and he should be being investigated.
That's sleazy.
I mean, it's more than sleazy. No. It's illegal. Could you imagine an FBI agent taking his 302 notes and leaking them to the New York Times? Right.
No.
So why does James Comey think he can do it? Now we find out. I mean, I've got a FOIA case where James Comey's office was notified immediately of the Loretta Lynch, Bill Clinton meeting. Knew about it immediately, and he plays that righteous indignation when he goes before Congress. He was horrified and all. Nonsense. They were involved in how to craft the message.
Well, Jay Sekulow, it's always great to have you on. Who's seasoned litigator, seasoned appellate lawyer. Is there anything he cannot do? It's unlikely. It's great to talk to you, Jay. We'll talk to you soon. We'll take a break. I'll be on Hannity and Special Report tonight. My Fox and Friends appearance is on Facebook and LauraIngraham.com. Always check LauraIngraham.com throughout the day. The issues, the topics, the articles, the columns that we call through for you, and the laughs, all there. So make sure to do that. LifeZet, sign up for that daily email at lifezet.com, and you get it in your email box every morning. You get a little update at night. It's very cool. By the way, the new iPhone could cost as much as $1,000. No thanks. Not doing it. I'm not spending the money on a new iPhone. I don't even like the current iPhone I have. I don't want a new one. $1,000? As my mother would say, what are they talking about? It's ridiculous. I mean, the tyranny of the phone. Like, put it down. I was at a restaurant. Mother was on the phone, father on the phone, and the twins on iPads. That was at the pizza joint the other night. A very close, tight-knit family. You are listening to The Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Not all the stories coming out of the rising floodwaters and the loss of electricity in the Keys and all the way up to Charleston, South Carolina are positive. There's a lot of great stories of people helping one another. But, of course, and it seems like at every point where major electricity problems arise, we have some individuals who decide everything's free. I love the video of people going in to steal sneakers. There was a tweet that I retweeted. Black Lives Matter works to rescue Air Jordans from the flood. I mean, it's not good. News cameras caught 9 looters during the Hurricane Irma. The suspects were arrested within hours, but then there were others that followed.
Did you see that? Heading to that location, that's where we caught these looters in progress, just filtering in and out of that broken window. And then shortly thereafter, it was the Foot Locker directly across the street on Sunrise and Powerline, where we saw more people stealing shoeboxes and among other items. And now that pawn store.
You know what they should do? Right before if there was a way before the flood to fill the shoeboxes with bricks, take the actual sneakers out of there and just put bricks in the shoeboxes. That'd be, wow, these Air Jordans are really heavy. But this was the same thing during Katrina, but Katrina was much worse. This is not that widespread, considering how bad it could have been. It really wasn't that bad. I mean, we haven't heard all the reports, but here's my question. Should there be enhanced penalties for stealing during a crisis such as this? Enhanced penalties. So when you take advantage of no electricity, police and firefighters are otherwise occupied, and you take it upon yourself to smash a window, walk into a store, and start taking stuff, should there be enhanced penalties? 855 40 Laura. I believe there should be, because I think you're not just stealing merchandise. You're also perhaps distracting law enforcement and other first responders from the really important duty of saving people, rescuing them. And we don't need any of this. And the poor businesses that are just trying to, make it post-crisis.
Well, you saw their arms full of tennis shoes, sneakers, stealing from stores. But where'd we end up seeing their arms? In handcuffs. So those idiots make our whole state look bad, and they are not representative of Florida. We have great police. We have great sheriffs. Yep. We have our National Guard deployed. So you do that, you're going to end up in handcuffs. And that's ultimately the last pictures I've seen of those jerks in South Florida. They're not representative of our state.
No, they aren't. They aren't. That's the Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi.
Yeah, but handcuffs, Laura. In Louisiana, after the first spate of looting, there were no more handcuffs needed. They had good old boys on the back of trucks and in canoes with their rifles poised.
Bats. They had
That's
bats,
how we
too.
took care of the looters in New Orleans.
Now, we had a sign in our basement growing up. We had a very small little Rambler. We shoot looters. And I remember, but how you remember certain weird things? I always thought that was the scariest sign. It was like yellowed paper. It was some kind of insert in Guns and Ammo magazine, which my father got. But it was like, we shoot looters, and it was a picture of a 45. And
well, you know what? One man with a gun outside an establishment like that, I promise you, those looters will stay away.
Yeah,
they will not be breaking through windows with a gun present.
Now, remember in the L.A. riots when those Korean shopkeepers were up on the roofs? They said, we're not abandoning our stores because we know if we abandon our stores in South Central L.A., we're going to lose what we've worked so hard for. We're not going to let that happen. And some of the lefties tried to criticize the Korean shopkeepers. I say more power to them. Protect your property.
Well, look, if it's water, if it's formula, if it's food, I get that. Medicine, people need these things in a crisis, and if you're in a situation like the people in the Keys, there's nowhere to go, Laura. They're running out of food, you run out of water, you don't know where to go. But it's quite a different thing to bust into a mink store, getting your fur coat through the water, or as some cops were doing in New Orleans, breaking into the Cadillac, dealer and taking Cadillacs off the lot. Cops were doing that.
Police were stealing Cadillacs?
They were stealing Cadillacs during Katrina.
You have the nation's finest there in New Orleans.
Well, not all of them. We have great cops here, and then we had some Lulus who were driven off the force. But look, this stuff happens. People think they aren't going to be caught. I know another story of a person who has a jewelry store in New Orleans, and the cops came in, or security came in. Not sure it was cops. Security came in to investigate. Well, they took hammers to the glass cases. They were cleaning it out, thinking the security cams had lost power. Well, they were operating on battery, and they were all busted. So these looters do get their day. No matter what they think, their day comes to them eventually.
The Red Cross, the Dutch Red Cross, of course, St. Martin's is part French, part Dutch. 91% of the homes in St. Martin's were destroyed. 91%. Turks and Caicos, these are idyllic places to visit. And they're reliant on tourism, of course. And they don't know how they're going to get out of this mess, because without tourism, they have no economy. The president is going to be traveling to the U.S. Virgin Islands, I think to the island of St. John and to St. Thomas later on this week, as he hits 13 different states to sell his tax reform narrative, his package. The Republicans have announced on their side that they are not going to release their framework until after hearings. I find that to be a little strange. Seems to me you should have framework before the hearings. But Orrin Hatch said he's not going to have the framework until after the hearings, because they haven't had any time to do tax reform or think about it, right? In the 6 weeks that they had vacation during summer, they had no time to come up with
6 weeks? How about the 7-8 years in the wilderness?
No,
what are they talking about?
No, it's sickening. And today, McConnell, two other members of the Budget Committee, are meeting with Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, and Gary Cohn on the way to move forward with a budget resolution that will make it far easier and far more likely, I should add, to get real tax reform through. They don't get tax reform through. I said this on Fox and Friends. They're finished. It's over.
Toast.
It's over. They're done. And I will tell you, the President of the United States will not bear the brunt of the people's fury, because he clearly has been beating the drum for legislation to hit his desk that he can sign. It is Mitch McConnell. It is Ryan. It is all these people who claim to be the big legislative experts. They either get this on his desk, come up with a good plan. It's got to be, and people say it's got to be revenue neutral, Bob Corker said, but we have to be careful because we don't want to ruin the entire idea of tax reform, thinking we're going to be able to balance every penny out of it. We're probably not going to be able to do that. So nobody's going to get everything they want here. Rand Paul, who's a purist on this, is not going to get everything he wants. The Freedom Caucus does not have the votes to get everything they want. You must not make the mistake that you made during Obamacare repeal. You must get the president a bill that he can sign that is in line with what he campaigned on. And if you cannot, move aside, get into another line of work, because politics just isn't your thing. 855-40-LAURA. During a crisis such as what we've seen, and we still are seeing it in South Carolina, in Georgia, the floodwaters for all of our listeners.
In Texas.
In Texas, of course, in Jacksonville, Florida. Should looters who take advantage of this crisis receive enhanced penalties from the criminal justice system? Enhanced penalties. I think enhanced penalties, and property owners should be able to protect their property. And I'm sorry, but if you're walking into a convenience store, you're walking out with jugs of wine or boxed wine, this is not an essential. Okay? Actually, for some people, it might be.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Laura. I might take issue with that.
Yeah. I was in the store the other day. I was actually in one of the big wine stores because I had some people coming over. Actually, I had some people coming over who were fleeing.
Oh, you're always in that wine store. Don't lie.
Up. They know me by names. Like, everybody knows my name. It's like the bar at Cheers, but it's an entire store of wine. So I had these people who were visiting from Florida because they thought the Palm Beach area was going to get whacked, so they left. They came over for dinner. So I was in the wine store, and I walked by the aisle of that, like, what is it called? The Gallo wine. Those big jugs, those funny big round jugs.
And jugs, yeah.
I just look at that and I get a headache. I look at that box and I look at that, like, Andre.
It's rat juice.
Duck.
I'm going to tell you when we come back why you get sick when you drink that wine.
Oh, no.
Which was explained to me by a vintner in California.
Cannot do it. I basically can't drink much wine anyway. It's just, it doesn't agree with me anymore. But to look at the big jug wine, that's the stuff, like, my parents, that was a big celebration to get one of those Rossi wines or whatever it was. It was like the Rossi. That was a big. And then remember the commercial for Andre at Christmas time? Din, 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 din. They were like clinking glasses, and it was that's so cool. Cold duck. And it's like $2.99 a bottle, and it has a plastic cap on top.
And Laura, who could forget? Paul Masson said it nearly a century ago.
Oh, no.
We will sell no wine before it's time.
Oh, no. That's a great commercial. We still remember it all these years later. All right. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. A lot to get to, including an interesting challenger in Michigan against Debbie Stab Me in the Face. Don't go away. You sent a clear message to the media and the political elites last fall. You wanted new leadership that focused on the middle class, not the political class, on your lives, not theirs. Well, they didn't get the message. They've been working hard since Election Day to block the voice of the people and help Democrats regain control of Congress. My friends, that cannot happen. You voted to drain the swamp, to take money and power away from Washington, D.C., return it to the hardworking people of this country. Well, we better do that. To moms and dads struggling to make ends meet, young workers trying to save for their future. My friends, small business owners looking to grow and hire employees, we all have to go to the website, taxcutsnow.com. Send a letter to your member of Congress to support tax cuts. That's taxcutsnow.com. There's no exceptions, no wiggle room. Get these tax cuts through. Put the pressure on Congress. Go to taxcutsnow.com. That's taxcutsnow.com. The best way to avoid a Nancy Pelosi-led Congress in 2019, go to taxcutsnow.com. If you've listened to my show for any period of time, you know how much I love Food for the Poor. They do what they say. Their financial integrity is unequaled, and I've seen their work personally. I'm so excited to work with them again this year. In Haiti, 1 out of 14 children will never see the age of 5 without our help. Together, we're going to save the lives of 4,200 children. $50 provides food for a year and clean water for life for a suffering child. Call 844-866 844-868-4673 or go to lauraingraham.com. That's 844-868-4673 or go to lauraingraham.com. When it comes to topical pain relievers, stores are full of Me Too products. They're the ones that warm, the ones that cool, the ones that claim to numb you. But there's only one Australian Dream arthritis pain relief cream. Australian Dream is real medicine that effectively relieves arthritis pain, and it's backed by an empty jar guarantee. Use the entire jar? Not happy? Send it back for a full refund. Get back to feeling normal again with Australian Dream. Australian Dream Arthritis Pain Relief Cream. Find it at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and Walmart. That's the Fort Lauderdale police chief, Rick Maglione. Looters should be... should get enhanced penalties, and that's putting it nicely. Karen in Indiana, this looting thing, it makes your blood boil. It's so awful, and it's such a sad commentary on the state of human affairs that when you should be helping others or rescuing yourself, you're thinking about shoes or TVs. Karen.
It is absolutely awful. And I guarantee you they didn't take those shoes and things for themselves. They're going to sell them. We were in England in 1992, and in the city of Liverpool, they roll up the sidewalks at 6 o'clock. And every shop had steel bars over all the windows, the doors. There was nothing you could get into. No way you could break into anything. And I think, it might cost the shop owners a little bit of money up front, but in the end, it would save them on their insurance. It would save them on
looks ugly,
things
though.
Like this.
Yeah, it looks ugly. Looks like you're selling your products in a prison instead of in the United States of America. But yeah, I understand that. In metropolitan areas, you don't expect to do it in some of these places, though. I mean, I guess we could blame the shopkeepers. I don't think that's where we should be focusing. Let's go to Karen in Virginia on line 1. Karen, most people have been terrific and great or just heartbroken. But these examples just remind us. I just think we have to get brutally tough on these looters. Karen.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's analogous to the hate crime, whereby individuals are treated more harshly than the original act itself. These thugs are taking advantage of the situation, and so I agree with you.
How about there was a woman going in with her kids, like a 5 and a 6-year-old? That's lovely. Mother of the Year award, Bob in Connecticut. On line 3, Bob.
Hi, how are you? Good morning. Good morning.
Go ahead, Bob.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yep,
I can.
I agree with you 100%. Looters should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. No, and beyond that, because you take advantage of that kind of situation is absolutely disgusting. And
Tony in Florida, I appreciate that, Bob. Tony, we're trying to get everyone in. Tony, parts of Florida are still underwater. Jacksonville, really bad. And Naples kind of skated through this, thankfully. Miami, not as bad as it could have been. Tony.
Good morning, Laura.
Hey.
There are laws on the books for people who commit crimes with bulletproof vests. And a lot of these looters are either covering their faces with their shirts or wearing masks going into these stores. There should be enhanced penalties for that. Also, state of emergency, if you commit a crime, a lot of these states were in a state of emergency. There should be enhanced penalties for that too.
I agree. I mean, it reminds me of what we saw in Ferguson. Remember during the riots for Michael Brown? Yeah, that was, and just what we saw in Baltimore. This is all excused because it's a racial issue. No, it's not excused. You don't have license to burn police cars, tip them over. You don't have license to go in and smash the shops that are essential for economic growth in the region. Remember the woman who had the hair salon in Ferguson who said, she's had it for 30 years and it's her whole life savings? Yeah, Freddie Gray, the cops were, innocent, and remember what happened there? Those whole blocks were burning.
Laura, look at Harvey. In Houston, there were reports, there's one report I read from an ABC affiliate, where the looters went in and burglarized a home while there were 2 dead bodies inside. The coroner did not even remove the bodies, and they're ransacking the house and stealing things. So this has gone on, but let me tell you, Houston is cracking down.
Oh, yeah.
They are not putting up with it. They have mandatory jail time for looters, and they're really cracking down. They're not tolerating it.
Well, I think when you have the great video camera opportunities to stream to your cell phone, you can watch what's happening at the store in real time. And these people are so stupid. Yeah, they have hoods on, or by the way, I don't like the hoods. I don't like full burqas covering your face, which I saw all weekend long in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. I don't like any of that. The rest of us are filmed 24/7. The hoods over your heads to avoid security cameras, and the full burqas where you can only see a tiny slit, I don't like any of that. My kids were creeped out by that, by the way. They were creeped out.
The geniuses should know it doesn't help when you pull up in your hoodies, but you get out of a car with a clearly delineated license plate on the back.
Oh!
It's a little bit of a giveaway.
No.
They all run, they pull the hoodies down, they run in, break into the store, come back with all the stuff, get into the car, and you can clearly see the vehicle to make, the model, and the license.
The license plate is
geniuses.
White as the clouds in the sky. Like, well, we got away with that. No, I actually don't think you did. $150 billion. The disaster modelers got Irma wrong. The way they were predicting this storm turned out to be a lot different from how it actually went down. Not that it wasn't bad in parts, but they were trying to say, well, it's a 20-mile difference that made all the difference. Yeah, but isn't that your job, to predict where the storms are going? End of summer got you down. Well, perk your hair back up with Ovation Cell Therapy and some cool end-of-summer savings on a very hot product. What am I talking about? What's so hot about Ovation? Well, it's clinically proven to deliver thicker, stronger, healthier hair. It's the third bottle in the shower that you've been missing. It's a therapy that I use, Cell Therapy by Ovation. My hair was kind of limp, a little bit fried on occasion, and now it looks pretty fabulous, if I do say so myself. People definitely notice. And Ovation is friend recommended, buyer approved, and Ovation is guaranteed or your money back because it really works. And you can take that cool plunge, try Ovation now, with 15% off for a limited time. 15% off everything you buy from all the products. They have luminizing products, moisturizing remedies, color protection formulas, 15% off all of it. And all you have to do, it's very easy. Just go to ovationhair.com. Be sure to select my name, Laura Ingraham, in the survey at checkout. That's ovationhair.com. Remember, Laura Ingraham at checkout, 15% off, and soon learn more and check out the full line of Ovation Hair products at ovationhair.com. By looters who don't want any interference. We've been having this discussion about whether there should be enhanced penalties. One of my old LifeZet reporters, editors, just texted me. He's a great guy, by the way. He's in Maine. He's heading up, I think, communications to the Republican Party there. He said, look, you get enhanced penalties for speeding through a school zone or construction zone if you're driving and speeding. Why not enhanced criminal penalties for those who take advantage of a crisis such as the aftermath of Harvey or Irma? It's a great point. Joining us now, Governor Greg Abbott, one of our absolute favorites. Of course, the great Lone Star State going through a massive recovery process now and repair, and they got a lot of hard work ahead. But the people of Texas have been overwhelmingly inspiring to all of us, and we've done a lot to raise money here on the Laura Ingraham Show for Samaritan's Purse. And my right hand problem notwithstanding, we're trying to organize our posse to go to Houston for at least a few days to lend a hand. Governor Abbott, great to talk to you. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for your help raising money for Samaritan's Purse. You may recall that I was with Vice President Pence in Rockport, Texas, where the hurricane first hit, raising money for Samaritan's Purse and actually donating some also. And they provide such a pivotal function in aid as we build out from this horrific hurricane and the flooding. But things are going well. We are in a transition phase in Texas right now, transitioning from the immediate aftermath of the storm and the search and rescue of those people who were stranded in the water that you saw so many images of. And now we're going through the long process of the rebuilding. And this is where people's donations play such a pivotal role. FEMA plays such a pivotal role. But this is going to be the long build-out process. So many people remember what happened in the aftermath of Katrina. First, the catastrophe. Second, the crime, and then third, the long build-out phase. We are now in the build-out phase. People need to buckle the chin strap, understanding it's going to take a while. Listen, the storm that hit Texas is different than the storm that hit Florida in the sense of the magnitude of the flooding that occurred in Houston, Texas. And the flooding in Houston, Texas was more akin to what you saw in Katrina. And there are thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of homes that have been lost, that have to be rebuilt. And so it's going to take a long time. But the good news is we have that typical Texas attitude with the support of our fellow Americans to get it done as swiftly and as effectively as possible.
How about the NFL kicking in? You know, Houston didn't have a great game, of course, the other night, and that was sad. I really wanted you guys to win. But we have, was it J.J. Watts who raised the now $30 million? I mean, he started off with $200,000, and that was like his, I think he wanted to raise $200,000. Then all of a sudden, get up. Now it's $30 million. The reaction he got when he walked out on the field was so heartening. What a great guy.
Well, he's an all-American guy, and we're fortunate to have him in Houston, and he's a true hero. And it's people like that who start out with an aspiration to raise $200,000, and it's turned into $30 million. And it's the generosity of people in Texas, across the country, and frankly, across the world. I've received phone calls from literally leaders across the entire globe who want to assist and support Texas as we build out. And I'll tell you one reason why, and that is these images that people are able to see about Texan helping Texan, about stranger helping stranger in the most dire circumstances. It showed that the very worst of storms can bring out the very best of humanity. And this has been an inspiration for people. But listen, an inspiring moment lasts for a few days and maybe a few weeks. We need to ensure that people hold fast to that image of the inspiration as we go through the long slog of the rebuilding process.
Governor Abbott, I know Mexico was hoping to send help. Then they had their own earthquake offshore, 8.0 on the Richter scale, and so their emergency services are being taxed. But is there anything you have not gotten in the way of help thus far from the federal government? I know there's a shortage of the FEMA trailers, which they're not great places to live for long periods of time, but they do give people shelter and get them out of the big, convention center type areas. What do you need the most now at this point?
Well, first, to this point in time, this has been both a seamless operation and a well-run operation between the federal government, the state, and local governments, and that's one thing that has accelerated our response. We are to the point now where we do need accelerated response by FEMA to make sure that we get all the trailers on the ground. We need to transition people from these evacuation centers into either temporary or semi-permanent living facilities, recognizing that the places where they used to live no longer exist. And so we need to speed the process of relocating these people, understanding that many of them have children who are in school, and we need to provide some sense of certainty for those children as they go through the school process for this school year. And so there's a need for speed as we speak today to make sure that we get the FEMA facilities on the ground and accelerate the speed of the delivery of the FEMA assets.
Well, I think there's, at least it was reported back in early September 1st, that there was a shortage of the FEMA trailers. They can't make them fast enough for this crisis. And if that's the case, you can't get them fast enough, then what? Do you ask people to take families in? Volunteers to do that? Relocating them to other states? Are you in contact with other governors about relocating people out of the state?
Yeah, well, part of the process, when you talk about FEMA trailers, let's bifurcate this. You may be talking about living facilities. As it concerns living facilities, there are a lot of options. So the main thing we want to do is to get people out of a evacuation center like a convention center into a place where they have a living room and a bathroom and a bedroom and things like that. And it could be dormitories, it could be hotels, motels, other facilities like that. So we have several options available. But also we have these recovery centers, these large macro recovery centers that we just set up, 3 of which in Harris County, which is the county that Houston, Texas is in. But we need more of those arrayed across the entire region. Remembering this, and that is so many people focus on Houston, but the disaster zone is hundreds of miles long,
Beaumont.
all the way from from Corpus Christi to Beaumont. Remember, over by Corpus Christi is where the hurricane first hit, and all these homes and some schools were mowed down in that area. And then, of course, you go over to Beaumont where they suffered flooding, almost like they did in Houston,
Horrible.
Texas. And so we need all these massive centers set up, and believe me, we're working so well with Brock Long, who's the administrator for FEMA, with his local regional administrator, Tony Robinson, and they have worked better than we've ever dealt with FEMA before. And so I know they're working 24/7. We do need more assets on the ground, because one thing that they are very appreciative of is the way that Texas and Texans are trying to expedite this process. That's going to ensure that we get our economy back going again quicker, but also it means that we will be using less money on the part of every governmental body. And so they are working with us to try to achieve this need for speed.
There's a piece in the Washington Times today, Governor Abbott. We're talking to Governor Greg Abbott from Texas. And the title of the piece is Christians Beat FEMA and in so doing tame big government. And the article analysis opinion by Cheryl Chumley basically said that Christian nonprofits have been working overtime and providing more aid to hurricane victims than even FEMA. And quoting a Daily Caller piece saying that the faith-based relief groups are the ones who provided early aid to nearly 80% of all the aid delivered thus far to communities with homes devastated. Is that an accurate assessment of the situation?
What they have done is transformative and awe-inspiring. When we were in Houston, Texas with President Trump, after some meetings at the evacuation center, we went into a neighborhood. And as we went into the neighborhood of homes that had been flooded, home after home after home had debris out in front of the house, debris of flooring that had been taken up, walls that had been knocked down, sheetrock that had been ripped out. Mm-hmm. And we learned that a lot of that had been done by faith-based organizations. And it's not just there from Houston to Victoria to around the Rockport area, over in Beaumont. Faith-based organizations have played such a profound role in just going in and helping people pull out sheetrock and dig out from the catastrophe. And I got to tell you, it's been really impressive, the role that they played, and essential, because without them, we would be literally years behind of where we are right now.
Well, and I mean, the piece I'm reading from might go a little, it just goes to show, she writes, where charity exists, government is not needed. I mean, that might go, you think that's going a little bit overboard? I mean, you do need some government coordination, I think, but, you know, a government doesn't really provide a hug and the love, especially the Christian love that I think is so essential, the comfort, the human comfort, as much as the Seventh-day Adventists or the Catholics or the Evangelicals or the Samaritan's Purse. I mean, I think there's something to that.
Well, there is, and that's why I so strongly support Samaritan's Purse and other faith-based organizations that are really stepping out there and stepping up to help out people in Texas, people across the entire country right now. And it does show that we Americans can and do come together in times of need and support each other. And we are so very thankful for what everybody is doing to help Texas out.
Governor Abbott, we were having this discussion on the show before you came on about the unfortunate instances of looting, which are not representative of the people of either South Florida, Miami area, the Keys, Tallahassee, or of Texas. It's just not representative. However, it does exist, and it does really hurt small business, medium-sized business owners the most, and it hurts the people when people loot. Do you believe, or what would your comment be, about a push to legislatively put in place enhanced criminal penalties for those who take advantage of a crisis such as this and loot or otherwise commit crimes against property or human beings?
First, I'll tell you that we've been impressed with the minimal number of looting cases in Texas. There have been several news reports out showing the low number. In fact, it's almost virtually non-existent compared to what it would be on an ordinary basis. In Houston, with the population base they have there, there's been only a handful of looting cases. And so Texans are taking care of Texans, making sure that we're not preying upon others. But also people know that Texans will take up and protect their own private property rights. And so looters are rightfully scared.
That's what I'm talking about.
Somebody's
yeah, get on that roof, Gov. There's no way you're taking my shop. I mean, that's a Texas. Like, I wouldn't be bothering anyone's property in Texas. That's crazy.
Yeah, you're messing with the wrong people. If you think you're going to go on somebody's property in Texas, and you need to be very concerned. But that said, I do know that when a governor declares a disaster like I have in more than 50 counties in the state of Texas that were impacted by this storm, there are enhanced penalties for certain violations. And what I can't say at this moment is whether or not looting would include one of those. If not,
it should
include enhanced penalties, because that's the worst of the worst. And we will lock you up and put you behind bars, and you will strongly regret any type of looting.
Well, Governor Abbott, we're with you, and I know so many great people are doing amazing work. I have full faith and confidence in the people of Texas and all the great charitable organizations and the Trump coordination on all of this. I think it's masterful what's being done, and we're with you all the way, and I hope to see you soon down there, okay?
Look forward to it, and we're so grateful to our fellow Americans for the way they've helped out.
All right. God bless you, sir. We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. Governor Greg Abbott, don't go away. But I'm glad he's out there saying it. He was in China today and giving a speech to a group of high-flying investors, including hedge funders, including a Hong Kong brokerage firm owned by CITIC Securities, a Chinese-owned investment bank. He had a subtler message, according to the New York Times, which focused on the need to stop the transfer of technology and intellectual property and better trade and dealing with the trade deficit, but he didn't talk about going to war with China in the South China Sea. That wasn't part of the presentation today. But we're looking forward to hearing more about this speech, although it was private. You are listening to The Laura Ingraham Show. We have a lot more to get to, including a woman who seeks to unseat one of our more annoying